Greetings and welcome to the Superb Diamond Range Show. Today's date is the 6th of September 2014 and our guest is going to be Richard J. Miller of nevernothere.com. Just wanted to let our listeners know that we're really sorry we haven't been very active lately. My co-host Diamond was on his travels again for about a month or so, and when he came back our recording set up on Linux under IDJC took a bit of a fall because obviously Microsoft took over Skype and they the sound profile we were using, ALSA, got changed to Pulse, and it really affected our kind of recording setup. So at the moment we're going to try out using Mac until we can kind of go back to Linux. But we thought it was important to get back on making podcasts again. Obviously Diamond's out of town today. So I've actually got a special co-host in Master T. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, T, and then you can introduce our guest.
Afternoon, everyone. This is T, a friend of Steve, and also, just want to introduce a fellow person today, Richard Miller, on a site called Never Not Here. He's brought a lot of people together, experimented with different things and different ways, and just really come back to the natural way of living and just discussing things in life. So hope everyone enjoys it.
Okay, so how are you doing today, Richard?
I'm great. Saturday afternoon, and kind of have some free time. I've been doing a little work. This morning I was thinking of taking a language lesson. But anyhow, just to say what I used to do, I like to be on a podcast. I like to talk and I like to discuss, right? And I like to listen. And I've done a whole lot of podcasts for maybe 5-6 years. I've lost track. And I put a lot of them on my site, Never Not Here. I'm not really promoting it that much, nevernothere.com. I guess I'll say it. I'm kind of like backing off it and letting see what happens, right? And I'm actually appreciate being on another podcast and just see what questions come up and see what we discover together. And I don't really classify myself as an expert about anything, but I've been looking long and hard at my life, of course, and seeing what works for me. And if I can share it, and it's helpful, that's nice. And if it's not helpful, I hope I don't talk too long.
No, I find that's a good thing what you're saying, because basically it's the natural way of just getting together without any sort of ideas or any beliefs is the main thing I found in life. And I've found personally for myself, when I sort of kept a rigid idea of a belief, then you never really connected to the person anyway. You know, you just went back with your way of looking at things, and it just became the same old, same old.
Well, whatever we look at, it kind of goes, there's kind of two components, because one component is like something is happening, right? Something's really out there. And another one is we interpret it. We have our idea what it is, which is kind of what you said, belief, right? I mean, we believe our interpretations up to a point. Maybe we believe that we don't know how to interpret and we don't know nothing about nothing or nothing about certain things. Then we probably try to avoid them, so we don't even come up with that very much. But I mean, if there's two components and one is something true or real or whatever, and one is how we look at it or our beliefs or our interpretations, how would we know how much is this and how much is that? I don't think you can really know, You get agreement. You go for agreement, right? In other words, like if you get a lot of friends around that agree with your way of interpreting, you probably think, oh, yeah, it's pretty accurate, pretty correct. Or, a lot of people are kind of lone rangers, and they think, oh, I'm right and everybody's wrong, right? Everybody's wrong but me. But the truth is, okay, you said if I was not having any beliefs, I think we all have beliefs, because they're like underwater, and they come up only one at a time or a couple at a time, and then we say, oh, yeah, is that true or isn't it? Maybe it is. I'll try it out. So I know, and I never try to say I don't have any beliefs. I just try to say go easy on them, right, and not to pretend like they're carved in stone.
Yeah, that's very true, because everyone's been brought up in a certain way anyway. So there are certain things, as you said, like sort of ingrained, where you just naturally respond by that system, you know. Because it's like when I was little, or my mum was involved with a religion called Jehovah's Witnesses, and they have a sort of an idea of how to live, and that they'll inherit the earth like a paradise earth. So certain things I was told, I accepted some things, and other things I didn't accept, you know. But then looking back on it, it was something that they understood in their own way. It doesn't make it fully correct, and it doesn't make it fully bad, because it was like a learning curve. So for myself, there were certain ideas that I might have held on to. And it's true what you're saying, that sometimes certain things can pop up. And when you sort of see your reaction to it, then that's a nice little insight to show that, as you said, we can take it more easier, and we can relax in that, and also step back from it. Don't know if you have anything to say on that, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say that I feel like I've kind of gone full circle in that I was very into... I mean, I was brought up in an Irish Catholic family, and obviously I went to church with them and never really enjoyed it. Just sort of went along because I thought I had to, and never really understood it all. And then later on in life, I got more into alternative ideas, and in particular interested in becoming more free and freedom. And I sort of didn't really want to have anything to do with religion, because I felt that was sort of way to control us, and maybe it's you're not being able to think of everything around you. You're just kind of thinking about it in a small way. And then later on, I came across a book called the Bible, and I had never read it before, even though I'd heard a lot about it, and I found it to be quite interesting, and definitely a lot of wise words in there, and kind of I found it enjoyable to read, and but obviously when it came to going to church, I had no interest in that, because I kind of felt that there was a more of a monetary thing behind it. So I was still wouldn't go into the churches or temples, but always knew that there was a lot more to life than what I thought there was, and what they were telling us that it was. So I don't know what you think, Richard.
Well, I closed off to religion for many, many years, and then lately I've just opened to everything. So I remember even 3 years ago I was living in the States, and the Jehovah's Witnesses were coming on my porch, and I was engaging with them time and time again, and they would say, "Okay, we'll be there next week," and "Okay, come on." I enjoyed, In fact, I even went down to the meeting hall, or whatever they call it, and talked to a whole bunch of them. And but I didn't really adopt other people's tenets. Like one tenet is that you're supposed to share Jesus for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and so then that's why they're witnessing. And then whatever that gives you, I mean, it can give you a good feeling or an open feeling. It can also give you kind of like rejection, because people will say, "No, get off my porch." And so then, but I mean, I tend to prefer to test things out myself, right? And not be told, "Don't do this and don't do that." I mean, we've been told all our lives, "Don't do this and don't do that." And even the whole cultural structure, and even each other, all of us. How are we making this talk with three people, right? We're kind of just relaxed and like not expecting each other to conform, right? But, all through growing up, especially in high school or something like that, I mean, kids are really ruthless, right? If you're a little bit different, you get a ridicule. And so then even in society, I mean, there's pretty narrow bounds of what you can pull off, right, without hurting anyone else. And, some countries are more loose, and some countries are really very what do you call it? They're conservative, very conservative. And or some societies, like, I don't know, like maybe a Hasidic Jewish society would say have narrow bounds, and you would have to be studying the testaments and the scriptures and dressing in a certain way and so on and so on, which is okay. But I mean, I guess we all dress in a certain way anyhow, you know. We got Calvin Klein jeans or something like that. We think it's style, but, you know, it's brainwashing just like anything else, right?
Yeah, that's true. But if you're comfortable in something, something sort of quite light, what I mean is, like, as you said, like clothing or something, then there's no problem with that, is there? It's only when you said, like, when we sort of start thinking that our system or our way of life is a lot better than somebody else's, and we try to, like, basically force them to accept how we're looking at it instead of actually just looking at it. And because I've found that just by actually looking at it, you're so open to many other things, you know. But when you're sort of really rigid and hard in there, you sort of close yourself off. And not only do you close yourself off, you close others off to you, you know. But when it's this, as you said, that when it's this light, then everyone just sort of chips in, says what they have to say, you know, and no one holds any sort of real fight against you. And even if they do, if you're not hard in there, then you're not really going to hold anything too long anyway. You know, something can come up, then it goes out again. You know, I think there's nothing really more than that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things for me as well that I have difficulty with is, you know, everybody kind of wants you to believe in what they believe in. And a lot of people force things on us. And, you know, like if you go to the school, they try to force the rules of the school and, you know, what we have to learn and what we have to remember. And then obviously if you go on to the church or even to a workplace, you know, you have rules again. And that obviously affects us because we're not really being allowed to be free to kind of have our own thoughts or our own opinions, because if it goes against what they're sort of saying to us, then we're kind of being told that we're the ones with the problem. And, you know, and I always say now that you've got to turn it round to them, that they're, you know, we're not crazy, they're the crazy ones, you know. But for me, what I find difficult as well is, like, we are a spirit in a physical body, and we live in a world that there's a lot of problems, and there's a lot of wars, and a lot of people are dying, and a lot of people are getting sick unnecessarily. And it's like we're not through wanting to, but we seem that we're born into a bad system that, you know, has got a lot of problems. And you know, I just you know, I want to be positive. I want to, like, you know, carry on and, you know, say that everything's going to be all right. But it seems that we need more people to kind of wake up to really what's going on and maybe take some action, because it seems like sort of sitting on the fence and not you know, doing anything is not going to change things, you know, in the physical realm, sort of thing. So I don't know what you think of that, Richard. Or
well, that's a bunch of them, you know. Okay, one of them is society. Okay, a church is a society, a workplace is a society, a shopping mall is a society, a city is a society, a country is a society. Societies need several things. One is stability, right? And they need a certain amount of order to have stability. So there can't be too many surprises. So then from that comes rules, right? And so, but then if it's all rules, there's no creativity and no movement. Yeah, you're like a puppet that fulfills those rules, and then you live a life that doesn't change, or you live the same life as another guy, or you live the same life as your parents, because there's not much room for creativity or for newness or for, you know, dreaming or for actualizing something. You said that there's a lot of, let's see, I want to say something else. Okay, before, I think T said, or one of you were talking about letting go, when you can let go of things. Remember, this letting go or hanging on, they're both distinctions. They're distinctions that you create and you make up. And you'll say, no, I'm never going to let them do that to me again, you know, no matter what. I dig in my heels, and, come hell or high water, I'll have to just kill him and go to jail, But that's a distinction that you make up, right? That you say, oh, okay, it's better to hang on there. Hey, just insist, keep your way, fight for your interests. Don't let anyone erode what you know is your rights, And then another one is like, okay, I'm blaming someone. They did something wrong. I know they did it wrong. They shouldn't have done that to me. So there's a huge blame. Then we think, oh, well, there has to be a forgiveness sooner or later because the blame is making me sick. But I mean, if you just stop blaming them and just say, well, that was then, why should I wreck this moment now with all my baggage from last moment? And they went down the road. Thank you, goodbye. So then you build a distinction like it's pretty good to let go of things. It's fresh, and you can be new. You can be renewed right now. In fact, all our different personalities is just us hanging on to something, some memory, and then we think, oh, that must be important. Yeah, that really happened. I never was very good at any of those things back there. I never was, I'm probably no good at it now. I guess I won't try. I don't like to get rejected, I don't like to make errors. People point their finger at me and say, oh, my God, what did you do? So then that's kind of like how the past becomes recreated. And it's done with distinctions. And it's done with not letting go, with with hanging on. And so I'm not saying that you can just say, poof, I let go of everything. It won't work. And anyhow, you don't even know what to let go of, right? But I am saying that relax. Try to be tolerant. If people are tolerant of you or not tolerant, well, maybe they will be next time. Try to be helpful. Whatever.
Richard, is that right?
Correct.
And you're originally from US or from...
Correct, U.S. But actually, I've got a touch of Europe in me because I lived 10 years in Milan. Yeah, it was fun. It was total fun. I never thought I'd leave, but anyhow, somehow they got me out of there. Yeah, muy bien.
Yeah, so obviously I've heard a lot about Thailand. My other co-host, Diamond, he travels there all the time. And basically he really likes it over there. And I remember listening to a guy that was comparing Costa Rica and Thailand, and he said that he felt Costa Rica was very beautiful and really lovely place, but he sort of talked about the people always were in fear of being robbed or being burgled kind of thing, so they're always locking up their properties. And basically he said that the church is very big in Latin America, Central America, and whenever you go and visit a church, you always find the door closed, and and then he sort of did a comparison with Thailand, and he said that if you walk around Thailand, the monasteries and the temples are always open, they're never locked, and you can walk in any time. And he was saying that if you compare the temples versus the churches with the people, that the people of Thailand are much more open-minded, whereby the people of Costa Rica with the locked door churches were closed-minded. And I just wondered if you thought that is true, and that you felt Thailand was much more open and free than say the likes of maybe US or Costa Rica, for example.
That's a good question. I haven't been to Costa Rica, really. I've heard a lot about it because my nephew went there, maybe even 15 years ago. He married an American, but he's had his 2 kids over in Costa Rica, and he's been in kind of businesses in Costa Rica, and he's always inviting everyone down. And I don't know. I think Thailand's bigger. I don't know how many people live in Costa Rica, but Thailand's around 60 million. Asia is pretty sharp, Asia can be really kind of modern. It's not modern like the States, but I mean, okay, if I one time I went to Laos. When I crossed back over the river and got in Thailand, it was like, oh my God, I'm in a modern country. It's really pretty good, And I live in a great city because it's cosmopolitan. Cosmopolitan just means there's lots of foreigners. There's a big mix of people. And so when there's a big mix of people, maybe like London, there's a huge mix of people, then there's all kinds of services for all those different people. And there's all kinds of choices, lots of varieties. And then, a lot of foreign people have a different income or a different kind of earning power. And so then that kind of splits things up where there's some things that are expensive, catering to the foreigner, and some things are economic, catering to the local. And one of the main reasons I'm here is because it's very economical to live. Maybe 25% of Europe, I don't know what. So if you have a small amount of money, you can come here. You can spend it too, but you can come here and make it. Not make it. What did I mean? You can come here and make it last is really what I wanted to say. But the people, how are the people? I mean, Buddhist tenets are pretty generous to other people. You're supposed to. I suppose Christian beliefs are also supposed to be generous too. But people reflect those, of course. The church is probably in Central America is probably a big part of conditioning, and as Buddhism is here. But certainly people are not perfect, and then there's a certain amount of poor people that it would pay to lock things up. I think places are burgled. I live in a condo, so it's kind of a secure building. One mind blower is nobody locks their helmet up. I mean, there's jillions of scooters, and the helmet they just toss over the mirror. Nobody ever lifts a helmet. I don't know why. It's kind of a mind blower in Thailand. So I don't know. Did that answer some of your question? I could talk a lot about Thailand.
Place, as I say, my co-host Diamond is a huge fan of that place, and he's always recommending it as a place to visit, and I even believe that some of the countries surrounding it would be quite good also to visit. But yeah, definitely it's on the to-do list, and maybe, as you say, an option of a place to live permanently.
Well, it might be more difficult. When you're over 50, you can get some kind of visas that say, okay, you can stay here. When you're under 50, then you have to handle a visa in a different way. And you can get a student visa for a year just by going to a language school and signing up. And I don't know. If you had a job, you could get a work visa, but your company has to get that. So then it's not. But, I mean, let's see. When I first came here, I was a tourist on tourist visas, right? And at my age, anyhow, I was able to get a double entry. It's called a double entry visa. It was 60 plus 60, 60 days plus 60. If you have a 60-day visa, you can extend it for 30. So that made 90 plus 90. That's already a half a year. Then you'd have to go out. You'd have to go out to another capital where there's a Thai embassy and arrange another double entry, and then come back in. Now I got another kind of a visa. So
it's true. He told me that foreigners that aren't, from Thailand, I might be in the wrong country, that you can't buy property.
You can buy condos, and then somehow there's ways around where you can buy property, and then you can start a company and so on and so on. I think it's a cool thing, actually. I think it's a cool thing because so many countries, like America, what do they try to do? America tries to open all countries up to freedom, and what do they call free trade, right? But really what they mean is that American companies can own all the assets. The big internationals want to own all the mines, all the forests, all the oil, and what is it left for the people? It's not all that much, Okay, like even remember the tsunami, which was 4 or 5 years ago, the big, the tsunami hit. So then, what happened? A lot of aid came in, and people were supposed to the fishermen villages were supposed to be reestablished, right? Instead, they cleared them out, they put them in compounds, and they said, oh, okay, look, we got all this beach property, let's sell it to the Hilton Hotel, and we'll start a big tourism business. So, I mean, that's kind of what's happening with there's a lot of pressure to let foreigners own everything, right? And then it depends. If you're totally, totally poor, like maybe in deepest Africa, they'd do anything to get some money in the country. and maybe they'll give a lot of ownership away. Actually, the World Bank and the IMF and all those guys, they really they put the screws to you. And the more trouble you're in, the more they say you got to open up your property and let foreigners own it, and then we'll give you a loan. So they really don't care about individuals' well-being or freedom or anything. All they care is if their foreign companies can buy into a country and make a killing. That's my unhumble opinion.
As you said, I think you just have to go with something that's truthful, really. And so that's your observation of what you're actually seeing. And I think sometimes people are afraid to actually tell the truth in certain situations like that. They think that you might be sort of got a gripe against something. And we know that sometimes there can be a gripe with certain things. But also, when we come out and just say the truth, it can actually clear certain things. But because sometimes I find that sometimes people don't want to tell the truth or say the truth, that's why certain things just carry on and it never really sort of actually gets anywhere. So what is seen is what is seen. It's like, if we're in a place where it's raining, we're not going to say, no, it's not raining, because that's what you're actually seeing. That's what's actually happening, And it's it could be, I would say, a lightness about it. There's a lightness about it, because sometimes we can get sort of heavy about saying what you've just said. Someone might say, oh, why is he saying that? Or we might be thinking ourselves, oh, why am I saying that? Or what? And in reality, it's the truth. And, so there's no big problem, is it? It's only like when we sort of fight against that, then there's a problem. But if we see naturally what it is, then we can sort of come to an agreement. We can come to sort of sorting something out, and it becomes very simple, It's like at work situations. You sort of pay taxes, you pay your national insurance. Now, you've been paying those things for years. Now, there isn't a time you're not paying tax, But then afterwards, you'll hear a comment where someone will say, "Oh, we need to pay more, and you need to do this, you need to." But at the end of the day, there's never a time you're not paying tax. So they're onto a win-win situation, and that's what it is, So we're sometimes overcomplicating something when naturally, when you're looking at something truthfully, it's self-explanatory. Oh, that's my little gripe.
Yeah. Well, a real good thing you said was that that's the way it is. So that's not necessarily means that's the way it has to be forever. But things don't change overnight either. Right? I think one of the great parts of Thailand is that individuals are kind of empowered by I'm going to just say by the distribution system and see if it sounds right. The distribution system, because like in the West, there's all the supermarkets and the big mega stores, and you really can't make a product and get them into those stores because they only want products that are in big warehouses that can come, they don't want to look at small individual lots. They want to look at, real big mega sales and real big discounts and so on and so on. So then the distribution system kind of has the small person, the small player is out of it. All the small player is the buyer. You get to go buy stuff. And then here in Thailand, it's different because the distribution system is really fragmented, which means that local people can even have a garden and grow a few things, and then they can show up at a little open market and then even have a table or just throw a blanket on the ground and put their stuff down and sell it for, 30 cents a pound or something. And just come up with, $5 or $10 even in a day is enough to keep life going. And but in a country like the U.S. or probably Europe, I don't know. In Italy, they used to have open markets, and you could probably buy and sell there. They had ambulante, which were the markets that changed streets every day. But the distribution system, I think, in Thailand is a real benefit. And it gives you a huge choice because everybody's making their own little thing, and it's a little bit different. Really cool.
Richard, are you familiar with a country in South America, Venezuela, where it's pretty opposite to Thailand? At the moment, I mean, they've gone through a lot of problems financially, and there's been like triple inflation and things like that. And I've got my wife's actually from Venezuela, but she's obviously got family back home, and they were reporting about the prices of things like bread, butter, and milk. And I'm just remembering off the top of my head, but I believe like milk is like £22 in UK sterling. Not sure what that would be in dollars, but and also things like bread is like £25, and butter is £77.
Really, just for a little bit, huh?
Yeah. And on top of that, like them being that expensive, they haven't really got many of them on the shelves either. And when you go to the supermarket, you've got to kind of decide. I mean, obviously, if you can afford it first, but also like which one you're going to get, because you've got to be careful, like that you get one that's going to last you or one that you're going to use, and so it's kind of like, and obviously you've got queues as well to deal with and things like that. So it's kind of just a real extreme opposite of Thailand, I guess, in terms of being able to the affordability of it, I guess. But I know that obviously people from Thailand, it's different, that they might not earn as much as, say, foreigners or have as much money. So it can go either way, really. But yeah, I just wanted to hear your opinion on it, really.
Well, I don't know the current events very much, right? I can know the history, kind of the history of South America. Venezuela was always kind of protected from it because there was so much oil, as far as I know. And somehow that kept the thing going. And many of the other countries, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, tons of them went in meltdown, currency meltdown, and hyperinflation. And so, and then nothing works, right? Nobody's there to make products that you need, even to grow food, because somehow the money, the capital, nothing is working because there's like this hyperinflation. It's a meltdown, really. And this is actually when things that I said before, when the IMF and the other kind of American foreign policy really gouged into those countries and took away a lot of their assets because they wouldn't back their currency until they liberalized all these laws, right? And so then it's a shame, yeah. It's a real shame when human ingenuity and human endeavor is totally stifled by monetary systems and by, well, it could also be corruption. I'm not saying it is in Venezuela. I know that certain governments are corrupt. Even when I lived in Italy, it was in the 80s, there was still a lot of corruption there. But it was just the way things were done. I suppose in Thailand there's a certain amount of graft and stuff like that, but it just bleeds off the top, right? And then I don't know what to say further than that. And like, it's a shame. It could maybe it could happen to us. I don't even know. It could happen to America. I don't know if it could. I think that UK is probably in pretty dire straits as far as a huge national debt and wondering how to keep it all financed and keep it all dancing, right? It could happen.
Musical.
Yeah. Thailand's pretty strong. I think they got, of course the military's kind of pulling the reins. And sometimes they let go of them a little bit to let it kind of run freewheeling, but then if they feel like they're afraid that it's going to bind up, then they grab it again. I've done that many, many times.
Yeah, I think it's really, really at the moment. It's just simple things like energy and going to the supermarket. When you think about how much you get for how much you pay, it's really not much. And a lot of people aren't really. I mean, people that watch TV keep hearing that it's okay and things are getting better and we're actually improving our economy. But the people that know that that's all an act and that's all just to sort of pretend that things are normal. But we know that deep down it's not, and you can just see it that it is getting worse. And things like petrol as well, it's really still quite expensive. And I guess it's just gonna something's got to give, eventually.
Yeah.
from what Steve's saying, I sort of agree with that to a point. It's like that sort of a two-way or three-way conversation, what we talked about earlier, where certain things aren't really addressed, you know. So it's like there isn't a coming together or a true meeting. It's just sometimes seems to me very superficial, you know. And it's only by really coming together that you actually shift certain things out of the way. Because I know for me personally, even though I went to different groups and different meetings and stuff like that and different hookups, when I sort of dealt with things very superficially, my own experience, it didn't really deal with anything, you know, because it meant me going from one place to another place to being superficial, you know. Then you get to a point where you realise that's not actually doing anything, you know. And it's only when you sort of scratch below the surface that there's something what can grow from there. It's like a flower or planting a seed. It grows in the soil. So it grows from the element around it going into the soil, but it also grows from darkness, you know. And it's only when it sort of starts to touch the light and photosynthesis that it starts to really flourish, you know. So I think it's like us in a scenario, in general, like mankind I'm talking about. Sometimes we're growing we can grow from the darkness because our own light or our own seed is germinating from there. And when it sort of touches the surface, there's more light for it to see and there's much more room for it to grow, you know. So I believe that we have to sort of scratch below the surface, because there's a group I'm with at the moment, and I haven't gone for a couple of months, and it's about, as you already know, like there's a lot of things about non-duality and certain different teachers. And then we went to explore something where we said, why don't we take this conversation a bit more slowly, or our reactions more slowly? And when we did take it more slowly, and we did look at our own reactions to things, there was like a growth spurt, you know. And obviously as well, within that, you always have individuals, like I say, even myself, where certain things aren't done. And sometimes people don't want to explore that, you know, because we've already got our own belief or our own ready-made answer. But I found for myself, truthfully speaking, that when I did take things more slowly and look at my own reactions, and then other people was doing the same thing, the community or the group that you're with just really seems to grow. And now, because it's like they have a way of relating to something now, or to really look at something, you know. And from there, I find you don't really hold on to too much. We know things can happen, and we know that I can be triggered by something, but there's not really a holding on, a very strong holding on anymore, you know. And it's like anything else. Like if you're sort of training, it's like I can't say, oh, I'm going to go to the gym one day and then I'm going to be fit. It's an ongoing process. So like the other thing is also an ongoing process. And when we put that into place, then we just, I don't want to say step back, but we see where it goes, you know. And if we're truthful about it, we see there is much more growth, you know. Because a friend of mine said he took someone through a guided meditation, and I don't mean guided, but that you have to sit there with closed eyes and that. But he meant just sitting, just relaxing, and whatever somebody held on to before, when they just sort of step back from it, they realise that they did become more calm. The body was more responsive, and then they realise, well, there's not too much of a problem, you know. And it's, personally for myself, it's like it's nice sometimes to explore or just to respond from there, you know, because now we put in another element in there where we might have overlooked, you know. I don't know what you like to say. You can say a lot. I know.
That's a bunch. Well, one thing you're saying is like, okay, people don't tell the truth. It's absolutely true that if something's not acknowledged, nothing can be done about it. And something not acknowledged, even if you stumble into this beautiful, perfect solution, you won't even know it's a solution. You'll just discard it. So that acknowledgement is like a real basic step to make any kind of a change. Before I was saying that any kind of society, especially like a government and a country, needs stability. So then people feel like, okay, if we just tell the truth, there's not going to be stability because people are going to be mad and they're going to be panicking and they're going to be doing so many things. We might as well just tell them everything's okay, right? And so then it's true that, I mean, if everyone's out in the street screaming, life is kind of rough. So then you can imagine that when things are cool and everything is really pretty good and there's a good growth and all that stuff, there's not that many lies. But when things are kind of sketchy and we're right on the edge of disaster many times, this way and that way and this way and that way, financially, economically, politically, all the things going on just across the river there for you guys, across the channel, or in Russia or wherever it's going on, Then more and more lies. There's always more and more and more and more lies. And then what are they trying to do? I mean, somebody thinks they've got a key and they're going to be able to work behind the scenes and straighten it out, and then we can tell the truth to the people, right? But I don't know. I don't know if you and I, the three of us, or even our listeners, are going to really just sit down and solve the world's problems. I mean, we can be a small component of the world's problems, like we can relax and, encourage those around us to relax. Even in the sight of acknowledging gross injustices, what are you going to do? I mean, you're not going to flip the whole world in one fell swoop. And then people that have interests that are being fulfilled, the non-equality, the people that are the elite, they're going to say, wait a minute, we need stability, just cool it, everything's cool, just stay the way you are. And you say, sure, it's cool for you, because you're the one that's on the main pipeline there. But what about us, We want to have a system where we can have a voice in the change, right? Some kind of a system. And then they say, well, yeah, but that system, if we change, we don't know what's coming up. It's kind of like a black hole there. We'll be going who knows where. And the other ones say, oh, yeah, who knows where is way better than the way it is now. Let's give it a shot. So when you say, okay, you acknowledge something, and even in the darkness, a seed grows. What's the darkness? The metaphor there is like, I don't know the answer. But I'm still living in openness. I'm letting go of the turmoil about it, but I know it's not right. So you're holding two things at once. You're holding something that's not working, an injustice, an inequality or something, and you're also holding an openness and kind of like a heartfelt sense that I want to do the best I can, and I want to stand up for what's right. So luckily, if I have the freedom of speech, I can at least say what's right. And so in that darkness is not like really, the metaphor for me means that I don't know what to do. And in that period of holding those two things, like this really shouldn't be this way, and this is my model of how I want to be. Like I want to be open, happy, and tolerant, and helpful. So many things, right? And holding those two, then some answer will come, right? Something will come.
Yeah, Richard, I actually think it sort of brings me to something that I was thinking about recently, where when they have these big elections, whether it be in UK or over in the USA, you're obviously people that, they say that they give us the vote and that we can pick who we want to represent us, and whether I have reservations about whether it's really true that you can pick who they want to be in power, but obviously getting one man to represent everyone, and as you say, everyone's got their own things that they want taken care of, and it's going to be very difficult to keep everybody happy, because some people might like some things and some people might not like other things. So I think in a way you're right, there'll always be there'll always be differences, and there'll always be ways to do things. We all have our own ideals of how we would like to live and how we would like the world to be, but that might not be what everyone else wants, and that's probably why we have things the way they are. But I also noticed that in things like companies now, you get a lot of people that, this is what I've experienced and what I've heard, but you get a lot of people that seem to rise to the top of these like companies and corporations, and they always seem to be a certain personality, and might I add, maybe not the nicest, from my experience. And it seems that these kind of characters sort of, as I say, push all the good people out, and they manage to make it to the top. And again, well-meaning people, say for example somebody that joined the government, they might be well-meaning, go there to make a difference and make some change, but they get elbowed out gradually, and then the sort of other characters come in and take control of it, and then you have like what we had in Germany in the 30s and Russia in the 20s, and this kind of situation. And I sort of feel that, as you say, you've made me aware that there is a lot of differences, but it seems that there are other forces out there, at work. Just wanted to hear your opinion on what I'm saying.
Okay, people aren't really trying. I don't think leaders are trying to get rid of all the good people. But the good people leave because they say, well, this guy's ruthless, right? And he'll step on anyone. He'll bend the rules for himself. And then they go, they say, I don't want to live under this system. And I don't know. I suppose, when people feel stressed, more and more is possible. More and more bad things, I mean. Because they're just willing to say, just keep it down, just hold it down, do anything you can, do anything you have to, So then we've got all these homeland security laws, where there's a lot of, like wiretapping or observation of, a lot of money is spent just trailing people and trying to get evidence on people that don't have any, for some reason they're classified as questionable. So then giving away a lot of freedoms because there's a lot of stress or a lot of fear. And people really play up to fear. Well, in the government, it's really a good thing to get everyone afraid. You can do whatever you want then. And you either have to get them afraid of the enemy or just get them afraid of your own police force or your own army. Countries do it all kinds of different ways. But I suppose we in the West are probably vulnerable to do some atrocious things. We already do it. We send cruise missiles in certain countries and think they're going to hit a target, and of course there's always what's called collateral damage, lots of innocents, but it's horrendous. But anyhow, we're just thinking, it has to happen because that protects the peace and enjoyment in our things. That I think that to trouble over these things really doesn't have a whole lot of answer. In other words, I'm suggesting the same thing, to keep them in mind, not necessarily keep them in a 50-50 focus where you're always looking at what doesn't work. But you got to be looking at what does work too, and you got to be looking at your own life. And the way your own life works is by the distinctions you hold. The distinctions, I call it, you choose these distinctions, Really, we could call them beliefs, because beliefs are verbalized. But when you call them beliefs, it sounds like, oh, well, I can't do anything about them. It's kind of unconscious belief. But when you call them distinctions, it means like, oh, yeah, I can choose another one. So then it's just like we were talking before about being open, or we were talking, okay, well, to run my life anyhow, I use a certain kind of a metric, and that's a feeling. That's a feeling. Because if I have a kind of a limiting thought, if I have a thought, okay, where this is my worldview, and this is me in the corner here, and I'm backed into that corner. I can't move, and it's terrible. And these guys keep pounding on me or keep pushing me tighter in the corner. Of course I feel bad, I might even get depressed. I might even get suicidal, But it's an idea, it's a thought that says, in my worldview, I don't have any room to move. Right? So the more you keep saying that, like you're talking about the financial system and money is manipulated and the bankers do this and the world powers do that and the armament companies do this, and they all do it. Maybe they all do it. But be careful. Just be so careful, because try to eke out a place in your worldview where you can move. And there is a place where you can move. You need to focus on that place where you have movement, where you can choose, where you can make some difference. Even if you choose not to do anything, it's still a choice. If you can choose yes or no. And if you kind of, that's how I just run my life anyhow. Because if you're always looking out at the conspiracy theories, it may be true, you know. But anyhow, what does it do to your own feeling? It actually makes you day by day live a pretty poor life, feeling bad for yourself, feeling as a victim. And people, as they age, they can actually contract and contract and contract until they can't even get out of bed, right? Or even young people. I mean, you know, depression and drugs, even legal drugs over the prescribed drugs for antidepressants are huge now, huge, because people have. Why do they feel depressed and they feel sad and they feel like they don't want to do anything? Because they've got a worldview, they've got distinctions. They're in that world somewhere. They're tiny, and it's getting smaller. Somehow, what I'm asking is, find a place where you can act and build on that. Build on that. And you feel it. You can feel it in your chest and in your body. You're feeling open, right? I don't say ignore or stuff all the other stuff. Somehow you can hold it, but you got to do these two things at once. I don't know. What do you think of that?
I personally think that's very true. It's like, I remember a few years ago, I was talking to someone, and he was talking about like these different things what are happening like in the world, and he really had a lot to say on it. Like really, like the governments are doing this and the governments are doing that, and he was going into it, going. So then I said, yeah, that's very nice, and it's very good to know those things. I said, how does it make you feel? And he goes, oh yeah, I'm really annoyed about it. Yeah, I'm fighting it. And so I said basically, so what's the solution for this? And all of a sudden he just went quiet. It seemed like he was so focused on sort of tearing into this thing, but he didn't think anything further about how are you going to relieve it and how is it directly just affecting you, and can you be more lighter or be open to it? So that's why I agree with what you were saying. It's like you can sort of put yourself in a corner, and then you can sort of become very sort of either depressed. You can sort of just act out things in a funny sort of way. But if you sort of leave yourself that place of where you are more relaxed, then your world becomes more fruitful, because you're not holding on now. You're not overburdening yourself. Because it's no different like having a dream, isn't it? And I know people relate to a dream, where if you believe that you're in the bed and you're rolling down a hill in this dream, or somebody's chasing you, then when you sort of wake up, you realize that you've been sweating, your heart beats more quicker, and things like that. When you realize, oh, I'm just on the bed, you naturally just relax, you know. And it's like today in living, it's the same thing. We're creating certain things, then we get contracted in there, and when someone says, oh, just relax, and what actually is happening, you realize, oh, yeah, I'm just in my room, I'm watching TV, or I'm just having a thought about something, and then it becomes, oh, yeah, well, yeah, there is a way out of this, really, truly, and I don't have to sort of change that politician over there or that one over there, even though they might not be doing the best job. It comes back down to like just changing ourselves, really, you know. And I don't mean changing as like I'm wrong and I have to change this. It's just a way of looking at something that makes you more relaxed and more easier for you to travel through life, you know. And by doing so, you do attract, I found personally, you do attract other people who are also looking at that as well. And if they can see you more relaxed or just more open to something, it makes them also do the same thing. because there was one time, or a couple of times, we was at a group meeting, and it's a place called Collett House. And there was this gentleman, he brought along his dog, because he was partially sighted. And the dog was just resting there. And when people came in, it would put its head up, look around, make sure everything's okay, and just sit back down. Now, when people would relax in this, how they are, the dog naturally just became relaxed to its environment. Now, when somebody came in and they seemed very agitated, the dog became agitated, you know? And then when they sort of sat down, they started to relax. The dog just relaxed and just had his little sleep, had his little nod off, and it was just naturally doing what it was naturally doing. So I believe that the dog is no different to us. And if we can become relaxed, the next person becomes relaxed. Even if they might not be relaxed at that moment in time, later on they might just look at it. It's like for myself, I've looked back and I thought, yeah, what was I really making all this big noise about? It was just like something I was just trying to hold on to. But then naturally, there is an opening, as I was digressing there, as from what you were saying. There's always a way out. There's always a way to be more calm and be just, yeah.
It's kind of like sometimes it's difficult to talk about these things, right? Because it kind of sounds to some people like, oh, these guys aren't going to do anything about these world problems, which are basically horrendous, you know. But another way to look at it is that there's always something, some kind of mismanagement going on or some kind of terrible thing going on. And if we only focus at those things, our life gets kind of ruined. And maybe our life, we take on a personality of a hero or something. We're this selfless hero that's going to dedicate our life to malaria or something like that. Could just be something like that, you know. But I mean, people are dying and being mistreated all over the world and always will be, right? That's not a reason not to be concerned or to know about it. And now we can't help but know about it. But somehow the magic is in being open to it and being open to our life and also enjoying what's here now. Because like one time you said, oh, well, we did this meditation and we all realized, a lot of people realize there's no problem here. But as soon as you think about what's going on somewhere else, even in your job or your rent payment or whatever, then there's something going on, right? But I mean, so I'm not trying to make a magic out of it and say, well, okay, if I'm relaxed, it's probably infecting you, you'll be relaxed, the next guy will be relaxed, and then the whole world will kind of change, shift gears. I'm not trying to make a magic out of it or say don't engage. But I'm trying to say engage in a way that first, you know, okay, first you have to stay open and keep your good feeling and know that that's the good feeling you want to share. And I mean, like, okay, like we talked about South America, right? This guy, Che Guevara, he's a hero to a lot of people because he's a rebel, you know. But I mean, his whole thing was, if you are not outraged, you're our enemy. So he always operated from outrage, like total freak out, you know, and ready to shoot bullets or do anything, right? So then that's one way to live life. But boy, oh boy, it's not very good. And it doesn't really, it just makes someone else on the other side outrageous. What do you think? I hope we can talk again. This is fun. I think we're saying some good things.
I find it really interesting because I kind of feel that a lot of people talk about, you know, if you think about it, you can change things, and I'm more a believer of action. But as you say, it's not just your action, but it's how you react, or you know what you do about it. And obviously, there's peaceful ways to you know to do things, and then obviously, as you say, that you could be like Che Guevara and be outraged and go around, you know, shooting people and.
Maybe they deserve to get shot. Who knows? But anyhow.
So yeah, I mean, I'm still coming from the perspective of, you know, there has to come a point when a lot of us aren't happy with what's going on, and we might feel that we want to, you know, stop participating in it, and you know, but you know, as history has shown, and as you mentioned, it does repeat itself quite a lot. That you know, you might get rid of one bad apple and then somebody else worse will come along, or another system that's much worse. So in some ways, in a way, it is kind of better to just sort of, especially if it's not too bad right now, just kind of, just leave it as it is, almost, but not saying do nothing. Sometimes there are certain things you can do to kind of, improve your life. But, definitely I agree with what you're saying about conspiracy theories, that, we shouldn't be focusing too much on them. And, as you say, your life suffers because you're just thinking everybody's out to get you, and everything's really bad, which, as you said, it could be true, but at the same time, there's not much we can do about it right now, and we just kind of got to get on with our lives and try to be positive, and in our own lives, and our be good to our family and our friends and our brothers out there around the world. What do you reckon, T?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that point. It is just you can only sort of make one sense, you can only make a change by us doing what. If we believe we need to do something, then it's down to us. We can't sort of shove anything down anyone's throat because we know where that goes. So if we believe that we can make a change in something, or we need to stipulate or put something in place, then that's what we need to do. You can't. An example I like to use, and I think we've used it before, the one about Jesus showing people a way of living, and it was like there's a big apple tree. There's apple trees all around. So what he does, he climbs up there. He spots apple trees. Other people are looking at apple trees. He goes up there. He picks a few apples. Goes to another tree, picks up another few apples. Then he brings it down and he distributes it. After, he might need to go somewhere else. So he disappears for a day, 2 days, 3 days. 3 days become a week become a month. A year later, he comes back and he sees people are still starving and they're exactly in the same situation. But he showed them how to pick these apples, And he's thinking, hold on a minute. They were waiting for me to come back, And people are always sometimes looking for someone else. All he was basically showing you was, you are that. You are the same as me. You can do these things. You can. Even Jesus said, there's others who can do more than what I've done. So it's become so simple that really and truly, sometimes we're starving because we're always expecting somebody to do our work for us, And when you just see the most simplest way of looking at something, the change has to be from here. It can't be from anywhere else. Yeah.
I totally get you about action step, because what else makes changes? Whatever changes in the earth, it's done through hands and feet, right? Some humans in between there, right? Even if it's somehow magic, The magic part is he changed his mind, right? Or he got into power somehow, or something like that. So then, I'm just saying these action steps should be done from openness, not from closedness. Closed, not from anger. They should be done from, you could say love, but, not as a magic. Should be done from, I'll just call it openness. And openness could be your mindset, how many other people you let in, and then your body, how open that is. And then, I don't know. So then if you're not able to be open, then you need to work on that part. Work on the part about what makes my mind closed. And I say it's distinctions, but we could talk about it next time. And then you were saying that sometimes you just realize that not much can be done about something, maybe now. But that's what we're doing about it. We're talking about it to see because we want to discover what can be done about it. Because even posting these podcasts is doing something about it, right? It's not the direct solution, but it's an awareness builder. And instead of talking about, get angry and let's join the revolution, we're talking about, is there an open way? And is there a way where we can maintain some kind of quality of life for ourselves and our community? And a lot of people have a different kind of distinction or different kind of belief. They believe that nothing can change until we hurt enough. And that distinction really has to be looked into and decided, is it worthwhile? You know, in other words, does tension breed change? And I think tension is such a waste of energy that I hope I don't do any more of that. So I'm looking forward to the next time, and we'll really get into this stuff.
Well, like I say, Richard, it is true what you're saying. Like, part of the reason why we did start our podcast was to, you know, obviously get our voice heard and, you know, try to make a change in the world. So, you know, that was definitely our reasoning behind it. And, you know, obviously, as well as that, was to meet people like yourself, great men that have excellent opinions and views of the world and way to look at things. So it's a real honour to have you on our podcast. I'll just pass you back over to T and say some final words.
Yeah, it was very nice talking to you, Richard, and coming together. As you said, we've been sort of emailing back and forth, you know, but eventually, you know, it was nice. It's just nice, you know. I can't really say more than that, you know. Anything I start to overly say, it takes it away. But it's just, you know, heartfelt, truly heartfelt.
Okay, T, thanks so much for arranging this. Stephen, thanks so much for being a technical wizard, and I hope to see you again.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Just pop me an email, and I'll be ready.
Brilliant.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Good night. Good night. Thank you. Same to you. Same to all our listeners.
So, yep, that was you. And thanks again for listening. Our website is superbdiamondrangepodcast.com. Our Twitter is superbdiamondra or superbdiamondra. And please subscribe to us on YouTube. Many thanks for listening, and peace out.